Yes, yo, it's your boy Eddie, and you're welcome to this channel. If you're a new one here, please do well to support me by liking, by leaving a comment, and most importantly, by subscribing. Today, we're going to be reacting to a video called The 10 Infamous British Gangsters. Let's go straight into it.
Say hello to my little friend. Welcome to Watch Mojo UK, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 infamous British gangsters.
And he just fights. He just fights and fights and fights.
Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we take a look at the most ruthless and notorious gangsters in modern British history.
Alright, let's go in.
The worst crime a man can commit is bring his family up in poverty. So I don't regret any of my actions.
Number 10.
Whoa.
Lenny McLean. Frequently dubbed the hardest man in Britain, McLean was known to most people simply as the Governor.
Are you gonna pay? Barry makes sure the administrative side of the business runs harmoniously.
While his gangster credentials aren't as prominent as some, he did become Britain's most famous bare-knuckle street fighter, and reportedly one of the best. Throughout his career, McLean said to have fought in almost 4,000 matches, and to have won most of them.
Well, I used to mind the toughest clubs in Britain, all over the country. I had about 20,000 barroom brawls.
An important figure in the East End as a bouncer, bodyguard and enforcer, he often associated with people such as the Kray twins and Charles Bronson, before in his later life he worked as an actor.
I suggest you get those guns. Quick!
Number 9. Thomas McGraw.
This guy's such a bully.
Born in Glasgow, Tam the licensee McGraw's criminal career started off with burglary and armed robbery, and he eventually became one of the most wanted men in Scotland. In the 1980s, after somehow avoiding a stint in prison after a failed robbery, he began to expand his criminal empire by selling heroin and purchasing numerous clubs and pubs. He was one of the key figures in Glasgow's ice cream wars, where violent confrontations become commonplace among criminals using ice cream vans as a front for drug sales. Number 8. Charles Bronson. With his taste for fighting guards and inmates alike, Charles Bronson became known as Britain's most violent prisoner, and is one of British crime's most notorious figures.
The most violent prisoner.
I'm bigger than my name.
Born Michael Peterson, Bronson began as a petty criminal and was first imprisoned for armed robbery.
Prison was finally a place where I could sharpen my tools.
Upon his release in 1987, he entered the world of bare-knuckle boxing, but his fighting career was fairly short-lived because 69 days later, he was in jail again. Out again in 92, he was arrested a third time for conspiracy to rob and has never been freed since.
And would you like a cup of tea too, mate?
Number 7. Freddie Foreman. He's best known as Brown Bread Fred, or the godfather of British crime, as many publications have come to refer to him, but Foreman says he's nothing like Marlon Brando.
All I wanted to do was make money so we could live a decent life.
One of the East End gangster scene's most feared figures, he was close to the infamous Kray twins and was implicated in numerous murders and other criminal activities.
Once you pull the trigger, you never know what's going to happen. So.
Though never actually convicted of killing anybody, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for disposing of the body of Jack the Hat McVitie, and later in relation to 1983's Shoreditch Security Express robbery.
I feel like when my time's up, at least I've had an eventful life, if nothing else.
Number 6. Tommy Comerford. The hometown of the Beatles has had its share of shady characters. This includes one of the first big business criminals to establish in England the kind of international drug trafficking network that you perhaps usually link to a mob overseas. Drug baron Tommy Tucker Comerford was instrumental in forming the first serious drug dealing cartel in Britain, which made the Liverpool Mafia the richest in the country. His first stint in jail came after a bank robbery, and during his long criminal career, he was sentenced to more than 34 years behind bars. Number 5. Desmond and Dominic Noonan. These two brothers were the head of one of Manchester's most infamous and ruthless gangs, which by the late 1990s had become one of the most notorious crime families in the whole of Britain.
We don't do everything nice, but you know, we do look after each other. We look after our friends.
Involved in drug trafficking, nightlife security, and armed robbery, the Noonans' reign over Manchester's underworld lasted over 20 years.
By day, it's run by police. By night, it's run by gangsters. Manchester is where I was born, where I live and where I'll die.
During that time, they were also suspected of being responsible for more than 25 murders. Desmond was stabbed in 2005 and died of his wounds, while Dominic is currently serving 22 years in prison for arson, blackmail and sex offences.
Shut up, I'll send someone out, I'll beat you up in a minute.
Number 4. Frankie Fraser. One of the most recognisable faces in modern British crime, Mad Frankie Fraser was a guy you didn't want to cross.
The police say I've killed 40 people, not 41. If they'd have said 41, I'd have really been upset. I hate odd numbers.
And the nickname is not just for show. He was actually certified insane during a short prison stint after World War II, a conflict he'd managed not to take part in by deserting. Fraser eventually became an enforcer for the Richardson Gang during the 60s and was reportedly involved in numerous episodes of torture and murder.
I allegedly pulled a guy's teeth out with pliers.
Bro!
I only wished it had been true.
Really?
His violence followed him in prison, where he would often start fights with other inmates and guards.
That is where I slung Eric Mason out with an axe in his head.
Number 3.
Wow.
The Gunn Brothers. Heads of the Bestwood Cartel, named after the Bestwood estate in Nottingham where they set up their criminal enterprise, brothers David and Colin Gunn became the city's foremost gang lords.
In the 1990s, the brothers had risen through the ranks from petty criminals to underworld figures, a rise largely unchallenged by the city's other criminals.
Drug trafficking, protection rackets, corruption and murder became commonplace under their watch, so much so that the city earned the nickname of Shottingham. As their empire grew and drugs flowed in, Colin started becoming more and more violent and volatile, as steroids and cocaine use heightened his worst impulses. Under his watch, even innocents would pay the price of his crimes. Number 2. The Richardson Brothers. Charlie and Eddie Richardson were the leaders of what many still consider the most sadistic and ruthless gang in Britain, the Richardson Gang.
Whoa.
They were often simply referred to as the Torture Gang due to their preferred way of settling scores and intimidating rivals and transgressors. After holding mock trials, their victims could be subject to electric shocks, teeth pulling using pliers, toe cutting, or even being nailed to the floor. The Richardsons controlled South London, but ended up in a feud with the Krays that lasted into the mid-60s.
The Richardsons, they were frighteners, really vicious people.
Number 1. The Kray Twins. The most infamous gangsters to ever call London home, Ronnie and Reggie Kray were the most prominent criminals in the city's East End over the 1950s and 60s.
Well, no.
Armed robbery, hijacking, murder and general violence were only some of the brothers' specialities, while heads of their own gang, the Firm. As owners of several nightclubs in the 60s, they became part of the swinging London scene and gained a certain amount of celebrity, even appearing on national television. But they were finally arrested in 1968 and essentially spent the rest of their lives in prison.
Now, before we start, I've got a joke for you. You'll love this one. Paranoid schizophrenic who walks into a bar.
Oh, with a hammer?
Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo UK and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.
That was some really, should I say, intense video there, man. Gangsters. Okay, so the first thing that occurred to me for some of them, though, was that by just facial appearance, by just looking at them with the physical looks, you wouldn't even suspect that these guys could do the kind of things that they just say they did. Okay, so by facial expressions or physical looks, they look pretty innocent for some of them, though. You know, for some of the guys that said they did a lot of ruthless stuff, I wouldn't even suspect if I just see them walking on the streets or just see their picture somewhere, except someone tells you that this is who they are, this is what they've done, and like, wow. But that's life for you. Some people just come off looking really innocent, but deep down they are crazy gangsters, man. But this was some hell of an information I just got here now. Yeah, and also right here in Africa, when you talk about gangsterism, you just think of fist fights. You know, pretty much I would say that there is You can't be a gangster over here without being a master at fist fights. You just gotta be in the streets and fighting with your bare hands, fighting in the streets with your bare hands. So it might be different though. Maybe our definition of gangsters might be just different, but down here we see gangsters as people who are in the streets always, fighting with your fists and maybe guns and some weapons here and there, but crazy, man. What I really want to say is this. Someone told me once that it is not just enough to want to be famous. It's not just enough to want to be popular or known. The question you should ask yourself is, are you worthy of being famous? Are you worthy? Are you worth being known? Okay. So yeah, you could be known for so many reasons, but you want to be known for the right reasons. Okay, so before you think of being famous or before you think of having all the fame in the world, first of all, ask yourself, are you worth being famous? Are you worth being followed? What you do, can it be emulated? Should it be something that you would look behind and be proud of? When your kids get to hear or watch your stories, will they be proud to identify with you? So those are some of the questions that you should ask yourself. It's not just want to be famous for something. Yeah, fame is good, but it is the right fame that is good. I don't want to be famous for being a gangster, someone who fights in the streets, someone who robs people, someone who kills, someone who is out there with a plier plucking out people's teeth. That was really gross. Someone with a hammer hitting on people's heads with a hammer, man. Bro, that's crazy. I can't even think of doing such a thing to a fellow human being, but people just want to do stuff, okay? And I'm sure that, I don't really know though, but I'm sure that before you would be able to do this kind of thing, you must be into some kind of drug, to help influence that mind, to boost your whatever, your morale, or boost your vibe, the gangster vibe in you, to go out and do all of that. Man, it is just negative all the way. It is not something that you want to do. It is not something that you want to be involved in. So that's why they say they are infamous. All right, so it's good for them, whatever they want to do, whatever they want to be in life. It's good for them. For those of them that are still alive, fine. For those of them that are gone, still fine for them. Some are right now in the prison, according to the video I just watched. And I'm sure they may be enjoying themselves in the prison with a gangster kind of life, but that's not what I want to do for myself. All right, and I'm sure that you also don't want to have that kind of life for yourself. Be famous for the right reasons. All right, it's good to have you on my channel. Like I said, please, if you find this entertaining and if you love what I do, support me by liking, by leaving a comment, and most importantly, by subscribing. I'll see you in my next video. All right, love you all. Bye bye.